Berlin's rent controls are proving to be a disaster. A year ago, the leftist government of Germany's capital region imposed a central planning on the city's housing market. That was a bad move. You ever just so conservative that you call rent cap central planning of the economy?
Very, very leftist rent cap. That's definitely not something that plenty of capitalist governments have done. Only socialists do rent caps.
I like this one. If populism on the political right corrupts democracy, populism on the left ruins economies. For the latest evidence, take a look at the housing market of the German capital, Berlin. Big brain centrist take. The Nazis want to do dictatorship, but the left is equally bad because they're doing socialist economics. A year ago, rent cap took effect in the city that was unprecedented in Germany. That's not really true. It's not unprecedented. There have been rent caps in Germany before. Less common in West Germany, but in East Germany, you had state-owned housing. So compared to the housing policies of East Germany, this is a very mild measure. All apartments built before 2014, rents were frozen at wherever they were on June 18th, 2019. Tenants in those units can also force landlords to lower rents defined as excessive, which is good. Makes it sound like a bad thing, like evil tenants force their poor, sweet landlords to lower excessive rents. That's so
Who
oppressive.
will think of these poor landlords, you know?
Yeah.
They're so oppressed, you
know?
Oh,
dude, there's a lot of, won't someone please think of the landlords in this article.
Oh, no.
This reform came courtesy of the city's red-green-red governing coalition between the left-leaning blocs in the German political spectrum, Social Democrats, the Greens, and the left, which is, calling the Social Democrats in Germany left-leaning is... The word left-leaning is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and like they collaborate with the Christian Democratic Party, like the Conservatives. Like they're very much a centrist political party. Unlike the way he describes the left, which descends largely from the Communist Party of former East Germany. Like really trying to hammer home like these people are really radical extremists.
They're raving Stalinists in East Germany.
Yeah. So Die Linke it's not, I don't think it's really correct to say that they descend largely from the Communist Party. The SPD, or the SED, sorry, the Socialist Unity Party, which was the ruling party of East Germany. After the reunification of Germany, there was a new political party kind of split out of that one called the Party for Democratic Socialism or something like that. And like they were like explicitly not communist anymore. They were democratic socialists, which then merged with another party, and all of those come together as Die Linke. So to say that Die Linke descends largely from the Communist Party of former East Germany is very deceptive on multiple levels. Because it implies on some level that they're sympathetic for East Germany or that they're still communists, which they're very much not. But, he continues, that heritage seems to set the tone of the campaign. Probably no coincidence that there's even a separate grassroots effort for a ballot initiative to expropriate large property-owning companies. The horror! A ballot initiative? To expropriate property-owning companies? Won't someone please think of the landlords? The underlying problem was real. Rents in Berlin, a place that was once proud of being grungy and affordable, have soared in recent years as demand from new arrivals far outstripped supply. And I like this. This is his solution, right? Is to cut red tape in zoning and construction. To get rid of like environmental restrictions, work safety laws, zoning. Like just fucking put heavy industry next to residential areas. Fucking tear down the forests of Berlin and build high-rises. Like,
if only these landlords could just save money by not putting in fire extinguishers, like...
Yeah, just get rid of all the, the work safety laws, get rid of the safety standards for the buildings. Oh, I like this. Berlin's approach falls into the same logical trap as fixing any price.
Oh my god.
If a food shortage, for example, regulating the price of bread only trades one expression of scarcity, high prices, for another, empty shelves. Which is not true. You can look at price stabilization in Vietnam, for instance, which has been a resounding success. So I know Luna Oi has a video going into detail about how the price stabilization works in Vietnam. The rent controls have split housing in Berlin into two distinct markets. The larger one, consisting of all apartments built before 2014, which is now regulated, and the smaller, unregulated one of relatively new buildings. Growth in Berlin's rents relative to growth in the 13 next largest German cities.
This looks good. I'm confused. So they're saying that this is a bad thing, but this looks good. The rents are going down.
Unregulated apartments are going up.
But that's like, it looks like it's on par with the trend, right? Like, so the rise in the unregulated apartment rents has only gone up about 10%, not even 10%.
Yeah.
But the drop in the regulated apartment, it looks like it's minus 60%.
Yeah.
This looks like a net positive. This looks like a net win for the working class people of Berlin.
That's because you don't have a business degree, Ben.
Oh my god.
There was also an acceleration of apartments going up for sale as landlords try to cash out of their now less profitable investments. Rent-controlled apartments have also become worth less. Changes in price relative to growth in the 13 next largest German cities. So not only are landlords forced to sell their apartments, but they're forced to sell their apartments for less money?
Oh no. That's like, okay, but like this is a good thing, and they're like, oh no,
Won't you please just think of the landlords? They're making less money than they otherwise would, and all we get for it is fucking 70% of the population of Berlin, which is like 3 million people, pay less rent, like 60% less in rent. That's nothing. Who cares about that?
Yeah,
landlords are making 9% less profits.
9% less profits? Unbelievable. What a travesty.
For unsurprisingly, those tenants fortunate enough to already living in a rent-controlled flat are staying put, and whenever somebody does move out when moving to another city, for example, the landlord tends to sell the unit rather than re-let it. Anyway, the supply of fresh housing is still constrained by construction schedules.
Oh my god.
This fucking guy really hates any kind of regulation on the construction market. This guy fucking owns shares in German construction companies, I bet you. There are almost no regulated apartments available anymore. Cheap rent.
Isn't that a good thing though? That means that they're being filled, right? Like vacancy rates for apartments are bad. If they have a high vacancy rate, that means that they're overpriced and that people are homeless, right? So
all right, Ben, I'll explain this to you in a way that you can understand. Line go up is good. And as you can clearly see, line go down. So, I think that's about all you really need to consider. No, but I mean, to them, it doesn't matter how many people are homeless. It doesn't matter how many people live on the streets. What matters is these apartments are privately owned, and the value of them is dropping, and that's bad for landlord profits. And then, yeah, there's not enough construction of new apartments, which I agree with totally. So my kind of thought on like housing and construction. First of all, the problem is partially that a lot of people are trying to live in Berlin, which is not necessarily a good thing, because a lot of these cities, like London, like Berlin, they have grown horizontally basically as much as they can. London is the famous example because they're hitting the green zone, the green belt, where they're not allowed to build, right? And I'm sure this guy has a fucking article on why we should tear down that forest and make London bigger. But so London, like, physically can't expand anymore. But, you know, if you had other cities where people could live, that would work too. You don't necessarily have to be able to fit everyone into just Berlin, but that's kind of a difficult problem to solve. Can't really just stop people from moving in or incentivize them to move to somewhere else. And especially like the city council of Berlin can't do that. So the problem in Germany and in a lot of European countries, because the EU for some reason really hates national construction companies. Like it makes it difficult for municipalities to just kind of decide to build something. There is no real way for the government to just be like, bam, 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 we're putting up all these apartments. like they could do in East Germany, right? Say what you will about brutalist construction architecture. Oh, it's so ugly, so blocky, but they don't have homelessness. They don't have a housing shortage. They have low rents. That's what they could do in East Germany is because they had nationally owned construction companies. They could literally just decide that, all right, we'll build more houses. But you can't do that in the EU generally. You have to be, it's very frustrating. The biggest question is whether this episode of left-wing populism has damaged confidence in Berlin's real estate market permanently. If investors fear that local property rights will be put at risk in every election, they might stop building houses in the city at all. The construction companies are going to go on strike.
Yeah. I mean, the solution here is easy, right? Is just to get these tenants to organize housing cooperatives to purchase away all of these properties. Right?
Yeah. I mean, literally, the article itself was like, yeah, landlords, they're not renting this out anymore. They're selling them. So the answer is like, well, so have the city buy them, you know? Have the city buy those apartments and keep them rent controlled, right? If the landlords are so desperate to sell these apartments that they can't make a profit from, fucking oblige them and be like, yeah, we'll fucking buy these apartments. We'll create a municipal housing company called Berlin Landlord Company, and just have it own these former private apartment buildings and keep them at a low price. All the results are as expected, and this must be the intent of the supporters of the policy, or at least they must be aware of it. While I'm unaware of the reason to establish this policy, did it have any adverse impact compared to what the supported? What?
Like, okay,
what do you mean you don't know the reason to establish rent controls? The rents are too high. That's the reason. I like this guy. You have to deregulate like Tokyo did in the 90s. Ah, yes, a city famed for its housing. Tokyo is like one of the most expensive cities on earth to live in. Sorry to break it to you, rent controls are working well for my friends and myself. We're all saving money from this. The housing market was trash before rent control, and it still is, but at least we're getting a break. I do feel...
from normal person. Their username very accurate.
But yeah, like the article like entirely forgot to consider the fact that, you know, most people are paying less in rent now, which is good. You know, like I feel like he could have said like once in the article, like it is good that people are, you know, don't have to pay as much in rent. But, you know, like I feel like he could have acknowledged that like there is, you know, like good when poor people don't starve. He couldn't bring himself to do that.
No, that's the problem with capitalists, though, right? They're like every single layer of capitalism wants to do the full entire exploitation of working class people. Like landlords believe that they're entitled to every single dollar that working class people make. And then like healthcare industry, they're like, no, we deserve every single dollar that poor people make. Like every single one of them. And they're like, no, we deserve every single dollar that poor people make. You can't let landlords only exploit partially the working class, because we can't let the auto industry exploit them when they buy cars. We can't let the pharmaceutical industry exploit them. We must be the ones that exploit them.
I like this. The issue isn't the rent caps. The issue is that we need to implement rent caps on the new builds. And then this five-head that would just encourage landlords to sell off their properties for private ownership, decreasing availability of rental properties and increasing homelessness amongst the young and poor. Like,
what?
Landlords, when a landlord sells a building they own, that building actually stops existing.
Exactly.
No one can ever live in it again. You can actually only live in an apartment if a landlord allows you to. There's actually no way to have someone live somewhere without there being a landlord involved.
Exactly. It's just like Ayn Rand wrote, right? Yeah. When landlords all decide to move to like the Cayman Islands, those buildings disappear and reappear in the Cayman Islands. It's actually it's physics. It's a physical law of nature, right? No landlord equals all apartment buildings only exist in the Cayman Islands. Everybody knows this.
The youth in Germany want everything for free at the result of socialism, and it's scary.
I love it. It's scary good.
The youth. This is like the majority of the population of Berlin. Like, what do you mean, the youth?
The youth.
The youth, they want everything for free these days. And by the youth, I mean 68% of the entire population of Berlin.